Everybody have budgets handy while we wait on Mr. Darfler?
I did send 2 revised versions today because after I balanced the closing, I noticed a couple things in water that I increased. You guys are, of course, welcome to decrease them again, but I wanted it to reflect the true stuff.
That's just the municipal dues and the property tax, right?
Correct. Do you have a number for property taxes yet?
For the general?
Mm-hmm.
I will in a minute.
Oh, okay.
I mean, for the levy.
Yes. Yeah.
Give Ben another minute or two, and then we'll start without him.
Hey, Gordon, can you simultaneously freeze a column and a row in Excel? Or PDF?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
You can simultaneously freeze a column and a row in Excel, right?
Yes. All depends on where you place what cell you're in when you do the freeze panes.
Vernon, could you remind me what the unencumbered balance was again? Was it 550? Somewhere in there?
Not quite that much. It was or is 519, 519, 390. Okay, I'm going to start the recording and call the meeting to order here in a moment. Ben can join us. Oh, here he is. Good timing. Okay, welcome, Ben. About to start to record. Okay, so I will call to order this special meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees. It is March the 16th, 6:08 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I'm sure everyone's well adjusted to that by now, he says facetiously. All the trustees are present. Both clerks are excused. So Vicky will take notes for us. The only items on the agenda we have are our scheduled budget working session to hopefully complete the 2021-22 budget, and secondly, to continue what has only just begun, which is our review of the comprehensive plan. Is there anything else that we have need of on the agenda tonight? Any changes that we need to make?
I had sent out that letter of support earlier for the Park Foundation grant. I don't know if anyone had a chance to look at that, but I'd like to get, a sort of general consensus if we're all right with having our collective municipal name on there.
Okay. Anything else to add? I think we'll do that in between budget and comp plan.
No, but I definitely haven't read any of those documents today that were sent today.
Yeah, that's all right. It's very, very quick and easy to explain.
Anything else? Okay. Then we'll go right ahead into our budget working session. Previously, we have gone through the general budget a couple of different ways. We've had conversations with our department heads. We have a couple of fill in the blank items, I believe, if everyone has access to the most recent copy of the general fund budget that Vicky sent around today. I think on the revenue side, let me make sure we have everything is the same. And as always, if anyone has questions or comments, just jump in as I'm looking at a different screen here. One change that we should make on the revenue side, Vicky, is I believe we can restore, with the passage of the stimulus bill last week, I believe we can restore the AIM funding back to the 12,550. There's also word that the state assembly and Senate bills, which both houses have passed, both include full funding for AIM, for municipal aid. So given that it's only a couple $1,000s, I think we can bump that back up to 12,550. And I think that was the only change. Calculator real quick. Oh, the other change is, Vicky, the appropriated sidewalk ban of 15,000. I think we can actually make that 20, since we didn't use as much of it this year.
Okay. I didn't hear from Eric today, so we just gonna leave all the insurances the same for now, Gordon?
Yes.
Okay,
So just so the board is aware, we were approached, the competitive insurance quote that Vicky's been looking at, we were approached by a competitor of our current insurance broker, looking to provide competitive quoting, and it is very competitive, but generally what we would have done, generally what we do is every 3 years, we submit a request for proposal to all the area insurance brokers and ask them to quote our municipal insurance among various carriers. We are due to do that this next spring of 22. So actually winter of 21, 22. Ahead of that cycle, an agent from another insurance broker locally asked if he could quote us on his own, and that's all well and good, nothing wrong with that. But it does, we're not required to, it's not a legality, but it is a best practice to give your existing insurance broker the opportunity to match that. Just the timing of it hasn't really worked out very well. So I'm actually leaning towards, it is a few thousand, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 worth of savings, but I am leaning towards making no change and then doing a wider RFP this winter, bringing in 4 or 5 different insurance, property and casualty insurance brokers, and allowing them all to quote and seeing what they can do. Unless the board has a strong desire to make the change based on one quote, we certainly can do that. But I think it's fair to allow our existing broker, and that's what Vicky was saying, our existing broker hasn't had enough time to get back to us with a comparison. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that or not, but that's kind of where I had been leaning for the moment.
I'd certainly be in favor of giving them enough time to respond. But as far as the budget goes, I mean, that's a fair amount of say, like that's a meaningful number. Is there a risk that if we don't accept their current quote that it would change over time? I suppose there is always that risk.
There's always that risk. I mean, these are intermediary brokers. They're not the insurance companies themselves. So From year to year, there's always that chance. I think if we'd been given more time, we might have been able to go back to our existing broker and had some more time to say, hey, listen, someone's coming after your business. Do you want to competitively quote against it? Normally, we just leave everything for an RFP year, which we're coming up on anyway. If anyone else has any comments, please jump in. I'm just scrolling through. And again, if anyone has questions on any of these lines that we previously discussed, I'm just scrolling through to make sure everything has been addressed. Vicki, if you have anything outstanding that still needs to be decided, I know there are a couple of, at least I thought there were a couple of blanks in the general budget that we had not.
We did cover
Concluded.
everything last time except for the insurance that I see. But a second set of eyes is always good.
And I think Vicki, we answered this last time, but what is the reimbursement for the police, the crossing guard? That's not happening. Is
No,
that right? Okay.
That is, Jessica, that is, if we have a second crossing guard at the corner, at the intersection of Wig and South,
That's right. I remember now.
then the school has agreed to cover half of that cost.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Don't know what foot traffic will look like necessarily. And in case anyone's wondering or keeping track at home, I have a separate spreadsheet that I run for budgets, and I'm just comparing mine to Vicky's to make sure I'm not off somewhere or that there's no discrepancy. Okay, there's the stipend, good. Should we reduce? Yes, okay. So the Events and Tourism Committee will have $1,500 available.
Yep, that was mentioned last session.
Okay, so bottom line, good. And so if we do the following, I know this is what Ben Carver's waiting for. If we do, if we allocate 48,000 from our unencumbered balance, that will reduce our unencumbered balance to 16% of our total budget. That will make the levy, Vicki, that'll make the levy 1048738. And we will have to go through, there's a rounding error somewhere. There's a couple of rounding errors somewhere in your budget or in your spreadsheet. So we're coming off by $1 or $2, but we'll be able to find that. But the levy would be 1048738, which is only a $4,000 increase over last year's and would keep the tax rate flat at 725. I know we had a discussion a couple of years ago about whether ongoing incremental increases to the tax rate was desirable. I actually think we're okay in holding it flat this year, particularly coming out of COVID and everything else. I think that'll be a nice relief for folks. And their assessments shouldn't have changed much because the village-wide assessment didn't change. My anticipation is that the village-wide assessment will change next year, right, which would actually be this year, effective next year. And then that will, that always impacts folks in the pocketbook, but will, from a budgeting standpoint, give us more flexibility next spring, would be my anticipation. But unless there's anything that anyone from the board would like to see changed in terms of either reduction in revenue due to a concern over us being able to meet those numbers, or an increase in expense over and above what we've already talked about, I think that'll get us where we need to be for this budget year, with allocating a little bit of unencumbered balance and then keeping our tax rate flat.
What is the rate per?
Remind me, sorry, Vicky, what's the recommended percentage for the balance?
Of unencumbered balance,
Yeah,
comptroller says generally the comptroller doesn't actually suggest a minimum. We just know that they like you to have some, and when it's north of 20, they start to get a little bit more critical. We've always tried to maintain it in the 15 to 18 range. Vicky, you were going to say something?
What is the tax rate for the village per thousand?
725.
Oh, it's gonna, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that one. Okay.
So this would be the third year in a row at 725.
Mhm.
There is an argument to be made that we're prolonging the inevitable unnecessarily by not having small increases. But I think in the current environment, as I said, and the fact that we didn't see really any levy increase at all this year, I think we can make it work at that number.
So this is very much what I had in mind. So, I mean, for whatever that's worth, I think this is a good solution. It is certainly the year to keep it flat, if it's within the realm of possibility, and it feels like it is. I mean, it's obviously a tight budget. I mean, we cut things we didn't want to cut, but I think this is the year to do it. I definitely agree with this strategically.
Jessica, Ben, any thoughts?
Just to reiterate kind of what we're all saying is, I think this is the year to keep it flat. And glad that we can do it. Well, it did require some belt tightening. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Totally agree. Just making sure that I'm tracking, because I didn't ask to have any special work sessions to understand this process better, which I could have done, but we'll use this time now. So what I'm doing is we're looking at the 2021 adopted budget, and then we're looking at the expected as of 5/31/21, and we're seeing that there is extra, and that's the unencumbered balance.
So yeah, I should take a step back and explain that a little bit better. So part of our annual audit that Dwayne presented to us
Okay.
looks at the budget at the year end ending May 31st of the prior calendar year. So May 31st of 2020.
Okay.
We know that there was $519,000 in the general fund that is essentially accumulated cash.
And where is that? Is that reflected on this general sheet, or is that in the audit?
It is not. It is not.
Okay.
There's also, to be fair, there's also an intricacy in that if you use generally accepted accounting principles, that 519 is much lower, because municipal accounting works on an accrual basis.
Okay.
So from that perspective, the audit will show that the income we get from the towns for fire and EMS protection is actually earned over a 12-month period. However, in reality, they pay us in January or February, so that money's in the bank at the end of May. there is no recourse, at least not in the contract, for that money to be refunded or rebated back to the town. So it was only, I think you may remember, it was only 6 or 7 years ago that those accounting standards changed. It used to be that we were audited on a cash basis.
Okay,
So from that perspective, I've insisted that we continue to build our budgets on a cash basis because that's how we spend money.
right.
So there's a little discrepancy there, but so that 519,000 is excess cash on hand at the end of May.
Okay,
What we then do is we say, okay, we have our anticipated revenues other than property tax, and we have all of our expenses that we've discussed over the last couple of meetings, and that leaves a shortfall to be made up for from property taxes, or we can apply some of that unencumbered balance.
okay,
If we apply 48,000 in this case, $48,000 of unencumbered balance, we would need to then generate or raise $1,048,738 in property tax. Take
okay,
that number and divide it into the total taxable assessment of the entire village, which for this year is 144,596,187. And we get a per 1,000 tax rate of $7.25.
okay, got it.
Just by way of comparison, that total tax levy for the village is up only about 500,000 from last year. Last year jumped over 11 million from the prior year. So assessment changes tend to be in the couple of million a year. As properties change hands or are bought and sold, and they're usually reassessed for the sale price. But then every 3 to 4 years, the county assessment department will come through and reassess everything, as we know from our own tax bills, based on a formula they have for property value increases by type.
Sure, okay,
So they were not able to do that this past year, which is a relief for many, but I do expect that they will soon.
okay, great. Yeah, I appreciate the explanation, and I also agree with the strategy.
So I would just add one thing, not for Jess's sake, because we discussed this a little bit, but more for anyone listening at home. And just sort of in the context of my time on the board, I think my first 2 years, we contributed, rather than using appropriated fund balances, we contributed to a tax stabilization reserve in order to bring that unencumbered balance down to a level that the comptroller viewed as acceptable or responsible. And then we've sort of transitioned out of that to sort of being neutral and then to using an unencumbered fund balance. And our plan last year had been to have a year where we didn't use it, but we also didn't contribute to the stabilization reserve, with the intent of this year being the first year that would be sort of back in the black and contributing again to the stabilization reserve. Obviously, given our current situation, that's not happening, but just to sort of paint the kind of broader picture of where we're hoping to get, I think that's worth pointing out.
I believe we used the rate stabilization reserve a couple of years ago, but I don't remember which year exactly. But
Yeah, I think you're right.
any other comments, questions, concerns on the general budget side? So then I think, Vicki, we'll just go through and find where the rounding errors are, but I think we'll consider it, we'll call it good. Unless something comes across your radar in the next couple of weeks.
No, I think-
And then we'll have the public hearing for it at our April meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so on to water. Water everywhere. There are some blanks to fill in Water is pretty straightforward. It's money in, money out for the most part. But metered sales, Vicky, unmetered sales, we can, I think, leave it 1,000 or reduce to 1,000 from last year. Looks like we're on pace for about 1,000. I'd like to see interest and penalties. We can bump that to 5,500, since that's where we look to end this year. And then we should reduce the interest earned number from 1,200 to 1,000. And then was there anything under expenses that you had left blank that we need to fill in? Legal.
minus-
Yes, there's a couple of
Um,
things. Legal and engineering.
Right. So engineering contractual, unless Ben Darfler, unless you're planning a water project that will require engineering. I think we can leave that at 500.
Okay.
Legal for water. Now that I think about it, let's bump that. Let's bump that to 2,000.
For engineering.
No, legal.
Okay.
And I'll explain why. I better make that 2,500.
Do we
I'll
get a three?
explain,
Three that.
I'll explain why in executive session.
Yeah, when I think about water, I don't think we would initiate anything. It would be a matter of development that's happening around us that might push things potentially. I don't know.
Correct. No, that wouldn't be legal. Legal for water is almost entirely bond counsel, but once in a while something crops up that we would actually charge an attorney's time to water, and I'll explain. Let's see what's next. Going down the list. Yeah.
What are you, the reserves?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay. So water equipment reserve, we are going to be paying for that dump truck, which I think, no, dump truck is all DPW. We've allocated some of the backhoe to the water equipment, and I think we have a truck that we need to buy in the next few years. Is that right?
This year, yes. Well, next budget year, yes.
Yeah. So let's make the water equipment reserve allocation 10,000.
Okay.
Now, if we go back all the way up to the top, our metered sales, we've been budgeting fairly high for the last few years. But our metered sales number has been lower, significantly lower than what we budgeted. Now I'm looking at the 2019-2020 actual of 609. I think that number is right. I think that's just about where we fall, barring any folks not paying their bills. So I would actually like to make our metered sales number 610,000, which will keep our water rates flat. In other words, our water rates as they currently stand generate about 609. And so we should just budget accordingly. And then we haven't done a full water rate study based on consumption in probably 5 or 6 years. So that'll be on the docket to do probably next spring. Again, I like the idea of trying to keep things flat for the moment until we see what our near future looks like for folks. So if we make that metered sales number 610,000, then that leaves us with $34,062 to allocate to one of the other reserves, not including the equipment, which we've already put 10,000. So I'm thinking, unless anyone else has a better spot for it, I'm thinking that the water capital improvement reserve, which is basically our water reserve fund, where we pay for water repairs and equipment and whatnot, then that would be the place to put that.
That makes sense to me.
The rate stabilization reserve I see is increased between expected to increase between the January 31st and May 31st. Where are we putting into that? I'm a little bit confused what's going on that line.
Yeah, what is our what is the current balance in the water rate stabilization reserve, Vicki?
Let me look.
Or I guess that's just projected out. That's probably a meaningless number when it comes to.
Well, it will be 134,000 if you add the 59,000 that was budgeted in 2021. Right now, it's $74,090.
So we will have 134,000 in the rate stabilization reserve, which I don't think I would want to see increase too much more. And then when we get to next year's budget, we'll have to decide whether we need to or when we'll need to do a new water rate study. And if the folks that do that study suggest a meaningfully higher rate, then we can ease into that over a couple of years and spend down some of that water rate stabilization. I did also, and Ben Darfler's seen it, I did also send an email to MRB trying to get a sense of what they would recommend for, actual reserve account balances. I'm thinking about the capital reserves, so our water capital improvement reserve. We've got these great new redundant well systems, but what should we be carrying in there for ongoing future repairs? 200,000, 400,000. I think the comptroller will start to look sideways at us if those reserve numbers get too large relative to the budget size. So that's what I'm trying to get a feel for, and then we can build that in the future as to how much we want to allocate to save. Ideally, as more users come online over a long period of time, we're able to moderate water rates and keep them flat or even decrease them somewhat. Any other comments on water?
Yeah, I don't have a problem putting it in the capital improvement reserve.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have it up. I was just looking for something else. But why are you thinking we'll lower the equipment reserve? It seems, is the backhoe price down that much?
We had that 13,000, Ben. We had actually reworked the capital replacement cycle, which is in the Dropbox, and it now shows only 5,000 a year going in, because the only item that's really purchased out of this particular reserve is the water department's truck. Now this year is a little bit different because we're allocating more of the backhoe cost to water than we normally do. So I'm trying to make up for that a little bit.
All right, I see.
That you're not going to use any part of the debt reserve, Jordan?
I don't think we need to this year.
Okay. I mean, if we don't need to, it's probably better to save it.
I mean, really what we would be doing, which I'm okay with, what we would be doing is we'd be allocating, so the water debt reserve can only be used for debt service. So if we used any of the water debt reserve to pay some of the bond principal, then that would actually free up cash to reallocate to a different reserve. But I think we can do that next year if we want to.
Okay.
Any other comments on water? Okay, then last but definitely not least is sewer. And so sewer, couple of thoughts. Sewer, we had decided last year we were going to increase rates from where they were previously up to 425 rates. Rents, total rents, up to 425,000 this year, with an eye to increasing them to 475,000 in this coming year. That would then, of course, adjust the sewer rates. That 475,000 represents kind of the target landing spot for where we think sewer rates should be based on all of the improvements that were made over the last several years. My thoughts are this: since we are rewriting our entire sewer law, which is also taking a look at how rates are calculated, particularly for commercial properties, that I would like to hold off on the next increase so that we don't end up doing two changes potentially in a short period of time. So we would be holding our sewer rates flat, which would mean holding sewer rents flat for this year. And then we would adjust once the new sewer law is passed. If we do that, then we will need to use a little bit of the sewer rate stabilization reserve, which I'm okay with. And so, Vicky, on the revenue side, we would be looking at 425 for the sewer rents, 2,000 for interest and penalties, and then 25,000 from the rate stabilization reserve, which we did use last year again, so that we could ladder into this increase. And then what have we not filled in?
Any
Law.
appropriated fund balance?
No. So I have a question for Dwayne about what that fund balance is. I'll need to get some clarification from him on that. That appropriated fund balance last year was really just to balance things out. We had a wonky number. Vicky, for sewer legal, let's make that 5,000, since we will need a review of our new sewer law at some point. And you don't have a liability insurance number plugged in.
No, there's about a 3% increase with our current, so 90,
So just make it 10,000.
yeah. Okay.
And then I see, let's see,
Just the
the
reserve.
facilities contractual, you confirm that's 91.6.
Facilities.
8131.4.
Yes, 81, oh, 31.4. Yes, I did. Because we got a letter from Camden.
Great.
The only thing is the sewage, the equipment line, which is 8130.2.
Okay.
I don't know what you want to put in there.
We haven't spent anything out of it.
No.
Make it 1,000 then.
Okay. And all that's left is the reserve lines.
Right. So based on the 425,000 in sewer rents we plan to collect, we would have $35,558 to allocate to the reserves. Until we get a better answer from MRB on how much we should be holding in these reserves, I would suggest that we take that whole amount and put it in the sewer reserve, G230, which will
35.
bring that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was kind of talking to myself. I forgot this mic was on.
That would take the sewer reserve line up to close to 200,000 in that account. So we would have 200,000 in the sewer reserve, which is basically the plant. And we would have 316,000 in the collection system reserve. So those are the lines. I think we're going to have work to do on some of the lines in the coming months and year. But again, I don't have a good sense of what is a good number to try to maintain in those two accounts. So if we start this budget year with 200,000 in one and 300,000 in the other, then I won't feel like we're too far off from whatever MRB suggests. We just have to start budgeting for it going forward.
What's the logic behind taking money out of the rate stabilization reserve and putting it into the sewer reserve? To my mind, we would just leave that zeroed out and then put 10,000 in the sewer reserve.
That's exactly my thinking, is to start to reallocate away from rate stabilization and towards long-term capital, both repair and long-term renovation costs.
Right, but there's still 25,000 coming out of the rate stabilization. Couldn't we just do away with that this year and just add 10,000 to the sewer instead of 35 and similar effect, but then we leave more in rate stabilization?
Well, there's $75,000 in rate stabilization right now. So if we spend 25, we'll have drawn it down to 50.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Aim for zero on that over time.
Right, which gives us, some ability to ladder into any sewer rate increase that might be calculated. I could be talked into leaving that at 75 and putting less in the sewer reserve. My guess is, and this is a wild guess, I really have no idea, but my guess is MRB is probably going to come back with something like a $500,000 number for some of these reserves. And then if we can kind of work our way towards that number and then maintain it over time, then that sets us up for, big repairs. Obviously your huge projects we would be borrowing or looking for grants for, but a bell press, what was that bell press? 100 and change. If we suddenly need $125,000 piece of equipment, we're not going to be able to mess around looking for help from Albany or DC for something like that.
I suppose I'm, at the end of the day, ambivalent about which reserve it's in, because we can always do, permissive referendum to move it if need be. So I'm happy either way.
What is the amount in 1325.4? What's that for? Clerk treasurer contractual.
Yeah, did we ever figure that out, Vicki?
That's we going to order me a new computer.
Why is
And
it not equipment then? Why is it contractual?
Didn't you say 0.2? I'm sorry.
Maybe
No,
did.
she was
I
talking
meant
about the
0.4.
contractual one.
I
The
thought you said, I'm
I
sorry.
might have. I meant the contractual. If I misspoke, I apologize. So I'm looking at 0.4. What's that money?
Just if we buy anything in the office, we tend to split it out how our payroll is split out, which is about, all of us are about 10% of our payroll is in sewer.
I'm just noticing that this is the first time there's a dollar amount that wasn't in 2019 or 2020.
Yeah, the last time we had it was in 2018, 19.
So I still don't understand why it would be there now.
Well, I kind of would like a new chair, so I was going to use part of that there. I haven't had one in 9 years. I kind of wanted a new chair.
And again, why would that be contractual and not equipment?
Chairs are contractual. They're not really, equipment would be computers. I'm trying to think what we would use in the office. It's a basically
Doesn't
just
really,
computers.
even though the word contract is in there, it in no way implies that it's under.
Oh, no. The contractual line is a good line for anything that doesn't have a specific line,
Huh, okay.
you know.
I actually think we can pull that 100 out of there, Vicky.
Okay.
We can pay for it out of general if you need a new chair.
Okay, if you insist. So that'll add, you want me to add another $100 to that sewer reserve?
Yes.
Okay, not a problem. Okay. Done.
Any other questions, comments, or thoughts on sewer? So just to reiterate, we're going to keep tax rate flat. We're going to keep water and sewer rates flat. We are going to do a water rate study at some point in the next year plus. And we are in the process of having our sewer law completely revised, which will also take a look at rate calculation, particularly on the commercial side of things, which will have an effect on total rents.
That's great. And I'm sorry, I didn't record it. Did you end up putting what did you end up putting in for law contractual?
5,000.
Okay.
That should be, hopefully, fingers crossed, that should be enough for Guy's review of the new sewer law.
Okay, great. I have no further
Okay.
questions and in favor of this strategy.
Okay. Well, if anyone does have budget related questions, you know where to find me. And you know where to find Vicky. Letter of support for the Park Foundation grant. Ben, do you want to explain that so we can give our tacit approval?
Right. So I'm not actually sure that we need to sign it. I thought we could authorize Rarden to sign it on our behalf just in case. But as it stands, I believe it's just going to go out with our name listed as, you know, we approve this message. So the letter isn't super involved. It's basically just saying that the village, along with a number of other municipalities who have been working on this, which is Town of Ithaca, Town of Caroline, Town of Danby, Town of Dryden, Town of Newfield, Town of Enfield, and the City of Ithaca, all support the application for funds from the Park Foundation that will go to support one employee who will basically be staff for the CCA effort. And the letter, I haven't read it in a while, but it basically maps out sort of the progress of how this has happened, why it's happening now, why it's important for environmental and potentially financial reasons. And that's really it. I mean, there's nothing complex or tricky about it. It's really just we support we support this money and we would really like to see it happen.
I'm surprised the town of Ulysses isn't part of that. Is there any, do you know anything about that?
You know, I am thinking that somehow Rorden got us involved in this committee by clever means, or you did before I was involved. And in neither case, kudos to whoever did it. But basically what's happened is that Rorden and I have been sort of like glommed on to the TCOG energy subcommittee. And we've sort of been incorporated into a working group, essentially, that is only a working group because we're on it. Otherwise it would just be the energy subcommittee. So Ulysses is definitely involved. I believe I've talked with Nancy a little bit about it. I don't know that they're as like full steam ahead as we've been in our support and sort of throwing our practical support in terms of just being involved in the meetings, but I believe at least conceptually they're on board. But I am surprised as well.
And I'm glad to see that it starts with a path that starts with CCA 2.0 and moves towards CCA 3.0, which is what we had discussed.
Even that's a little aggressive for my taste, but I mean, it is what it is.
I think there's some hope on the part of members of this committee that this could become a consortium style effort, where if with the Park Foundation money, part of what its purpose is to hire this individual who will, much like TCOG received a $100,000 grant in 2009 or 2008, which was the seed money to hire the consultant who ended up helping us form the consortium. So the hope is that this money, if it's received from Park Foundation, would help to pay for this employee who would start some of this initial laying the groundwork for hopefully what could be some type of a county, or at least an organization that includes all of the municipalities within Tompkins County, to try to create some type of purchasing power. And then if individual municipalities want to move in the direction of CCA 3.0, then they certainly can if they can find the funding. A place like the Village of Groton, which is a power, has a power generation facility. They obviously would be unlikely that they would be part of this effort. So it'll be interesting to see if it gathers any steam.
I think this is great personally, and happy to have our name on it.
Yeah, I don't think we need any approval since it's really coming from a TCOG committee of which we are a member. It would be more if we didn't want it to go out that we would have to insist that our name come off it. I think if we're supportive, then there's nothing that needs to be done at this point.
Except to say thanks to you and Ben Carver for bringing the documents to our attention, keeping us in the loop.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, Ben's been doing all the heavy CCA lifting on that committee. I'm just there for moral support.
I think we're all there for moral support. Rod's doing all the work. Rod and Terry and Kareem, if anyone knows Kareem Pierce. Okay, great. Well, I'll let Rod know that we're on board.
Great. Then the next item on the agenda would be our continuing of our review on the draft comprehensive plan. Ben, I had in mind to hand this off to you to lead us down the review path.
Sure.
Did you want to word? You had mentioned that Vicky would not be required to stay for this portion.
Yes. Good night, Vicky.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
So does everyone have that document open? I think is maybe the best place to start. If not, I mean, I can talk through it, but it'd probably be easier if people are able to follow along.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Yep. Open online, track changes, blue and purple pens handy.
Got it. Don't write on your screen.
Oh, man, I keep forgetting.
If people have a specific thing to call out or jump into, feel free to jump or mentions that. Otherwise, my intention was just to kind of go through comment by comment, edit by edit, and we can kind of approve or accept as a group, or leave other additional comments for EDR. So we'll start at the top with Jessica, your comment of alphabetizing some of these boards and or
Yeah, it seems sort of
groups.
willy-nilly to me unless there's some hierarchy I'm missing, but it seems like it ought to be, chairs alphabetically and then mayor, deputy, and then everything else alphabetical underneath.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not sure there was any order other than whatever someone listed them on a piece of paper at one point. So I'm just going to take notes and say kind of like approved. This is something I think just EDR can do. All right.
Oh, alphabetical by last name. I don't know if I said that. I get all
Sure.
willy-nilly here.
Yes. There we go.
Also, does Alberg only have one L? We should check that. I think it might.
I'm seeing Roden nod.
It is only one L in
I'll just make that right ahead.
Mr. John's last name.
Just go ahead and make that. How does one accept these? Oh, I probably have to be in, I don't know.
Do you have to be in, you have to be in reviewing mode with track changes on?
Yeah, turn. I don't know.
Not sure you can accept them as a guest user, but
That might be the thing. I'll leave it as is. Someone had said, consider adding a land acknowledgement here or first thing in the introduction section. What that essentially states what is in first paragraph of section 3.2 with the village being on traditional lands and so forth. Do we have any opinion on moving that section? So for folks that have not maybe skipped ahead to section 3.2, you can feel free to scroll down, but maybe briefly read it.
Ben, is there a convention to put that at the beginning of comp plans now?
I don't know as far as convention per se. This was actually the idea of including this acknowledgement came from the committee. So it's not something EDR brought to us. So I'm not sure that they have much. I mean, I'm sure they've seen other examples of it, but wasn't convention enough to kind of be suggested through EDR that the committee came up with this ourselves.
I don't believe it's convention. And Ben, I thought I had CC'd you on the email. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Been in touch with Ben Sandberg from the History Center, who is going to take our land acknowledgement to Sachem George of the Cayuga Nation and get his opinion on the language, get his opinion on the specificity of it to the village of Trumansburg, whether he has an opinion on that. And I think somewhere in that conversation might be, kind of the prominence, what prominence that statement should have in the document. So I think we can kind of leave that aside until we get some input.
Okay.
All right. Then the next one is an addition to the last value, which was actually made by the committee and was missed in this draft, to add health, safety, and welfare to the end of the last vision. Vision bullet.
I'm sorry, could you refer to page number?
Sure. I am on. Do I have those? Oh, there they are. Yes. So at the bottom of page 2, so there's the 20-year vision. It has the 6 bullet points. The last one says, "Yep, is guided by a transparent, responsive, and fiscally responsible village government committed to public service." And the final draft of the committee had said committed to public service, health, safety, and welfare. So I could probably just put this in anyhow. that's there. Next. All right, all right, we'll skip the whole index or table of contents here.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, huh?
We have another land acknowledgement could go here, but that will continue to hold until we have more guidance. Let me. Right. Then a comment from, well, let's see. We've got small edits. Maybe we don't really need to mention, but bring should be brought. Tense, verb tenses. I had added something here to say how many responses we received for the questionnaire and in-depth survey. I thought it was important to kind of mention that, though I've now mentioned it also in the appendix, which has all the results. So I can go either way here.
I don't know, Ben, if you did a percentage of like how you're presenting the data, but I think in the planning process to show a high level of participation is important, and no one's not buried in the appendix.
All right.
I'd also like to see that sentence, Ben, include, unless you think it's self-aggrandizing. I wouldn't mind seeing that this number, because 266 sounds like a small number.
Yeah.
But if we were to reference it relative to the 2005, 6, 7 surveys,
Right.
As being an increase, I think that's meaningful.
And do you want to do it as a percentage then? Percent increase over prior participation instead of a number of 266?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind referencing the number of responses this time, but something along the lines of, which was a 18% increase over the prior survey conducted or which led to the adoption of the original comp plan in 2008 or something like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
What the original response rate was?
What's that?
What was the original response rate?
It was low 200s. I don't remember the number off the top of my head.
220 something is what comes to mind. 229.
All right. I took a note to add that in, and we'll make that happen. Let's see. Next, we have a comment from Rorden to make village capitalized in all the places that it should be, which
Thank you.
is a good point. Carrying forward, we have, there we go.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that made me squirmy.
Let's see. Sorry, go ahead.
Are you talking about the modification of the vision statement?
Yeah.
Or did I jump? Yeah, I'm like, the vision statement is the planning, how is that getting adjusted? Does the planning board have ability to modify a vision statement? That made me feel really, really squirmy, or to modify anything. I mean, to assess, suggest changes or things like that. Maybe.
So only the village board by vote after public hearing can modify the comp plan. So I think it's more of just a language issue. The village planning board can be charged with reviewing the plan with special attention to whatever they want. And then maybe it's simply just saying this review may result in. It's not up to the planning board to adopt those changes, but they could make recommendations to the village board, which
So
may
how about-
result in.
Yeah, if we like the bullet structure there, Rorden, if this is even a necessary section, maybe it can say, these may likely result in suggestions to
Right,
modify the
recommendations to the.
recommendations, good word,
Yeah.
to the village board to, for, or recommendations to the village board for modification, revision, modification.
Something like that will result in recommendations of village board
You can say for and then a colon,
or,
or modification, for
Yeah.
revision, modification. That makes
that's
sense.
good. Next, a comment on several tourist attractions. Salo habitat by the farmer's market would be noteworthy. Yes.
And did I
Uh,
get to, and I might have come back to it later, it sort of was like, if we're talking about the regional setting, I think it is, because this is sort of a, not necessarily taking the words of the people. This is like some research study and a background and place setting. So the
Right.
national forest should be definitely in there, because we recreate there all the time as citizenry. And the habitat, did I mention all the others?
You had mentioned the habitat trail. Rorden had mentioned Cuga Wine Trail.
Great.
Um,
Did we mention Seneca Lake Wine Trail?
no, I don't believe so.
So it's
So
sort of
may-
also really shocking to me that Hector is largely left out in general, even though it is a town adjacent to us and supplies our school district. And itself is like a huge hotbed of growth and tourism.
Yeah, so I think maybe the thing to do for this paragraph is to, I think you continued here, Black Diamond Trail,
Oh, yeah, thank
proximity
you.
to Hector, Heart Lake of Finger Lakes Wine Country, National Forest, and so forth. So maybe the thing to do is to, if there's anything beyond the ones we just mentioned, so the Sailor Drive, Cuga Wine Trail, Black Diamond Trail, National Forest, if there's anything beyond that that we want to call out here, we can just list it and make sure that EDR adds those in.
Okay.
I would say that I'm not really sure the Salo Drive Trail is a tourist attraction. I mean, it's sort of like a recreational opportunity. I don't know that we want to throw like the entire list of everything to like you know what I mean? I think we should filter it a little bit.
I think that's a fair point, Ben. I think we almost already have though. And I think it's interesting to
Maybe
note.
over filtered. Yeah.
Well, I think that here, if one of the realities is how walkable, if walkability is a significant desire and is identified by the people, the citizenry in the comp plan, to note that we have the habitat trail, and if we are encouraging tourism to come up by bicycle and by foot from the Black Diamond Trail, to highlight the other areas where you can walk in our community, especially because it's right by the farmers market. I think it's a pretty, I hear you that it seems small, but it also represents an endeavor with the town, the village, and also the county. Am I right? Can't remember who else helped with that.
Yeah, I guess it's a question of like, what is this paragraph trying to highlight? It does seem to start by saying several tourist attractions nearby. Do we consider Salo Drive a tourist attraction? Which part of these are kind of tourist attractions?
Is the town of Covert a tourist attraction without anything highlight? I don't know. This whole thing is tricky.
Yeah, no, that is just saying that 96 connects through Trumansburg from Ithaca to Covert. I agree. I mean, the other thing is, Jess, you're obviously very passionate about this. If you wanted to kind of give a more holistic kind of scratch this paragraph and write something new that kind of fit the bill. I mean, right, we're setting the stage here. This can almost be anything that we wanted to say. So if there's things we want to call out, while keeping it compact. I mean, there's places throughout the rest that I imagine there will be would be more proper potentially for things like the Black Diamond Trail and the Sailor Drive Trail and so
which
forth.
I think I did mention again. Okay, so I think both Bens, you've made really good points, and let me just look deeper. I just didn't want to get the things lost. Like I didn't want to forget them to get mentioned.
Yeah, right.
So why don't I'll dig deeper into this, and then also where it calls out more specifically. So regional setting versus area attractions and recreational areas.
Yeah,
Well,
when
and
we
I
get to
would-
more of the details there.
I would just add that I don't know whether the Salo Drive Trail should be in this list or not, but I am sure that the wine trails, both of them, should be on the list. Probably the Black Diamond Trail. I mean, those are, especially from a vision and view standpoint. I see, and we've talked about this a little bit, I see Trumansburg differentiating itself from the other small municipalities in Tompkins County and separating ourselves from this, what has developed over the last 30 or 40 years, kind of feeling as of being a bedroom community for Ithaca. I see that shifting, thankfully, and for the better. But that does connect very closely to the wine trails, in particular the parks, obviously Black Diamond Trail being a piece of that,
And the National Forest.
and the National Forest. Yeah.
Cool.
But how to wordsmith that, I don't have a strong opinion.
Sounds like my Sunday is shaping up to be wordy.
All right. So
It's
why
gonna,
don't,
be, it's gonna be 65 and sunny on Sunday there, Jess. So you can
Sounds like
word,
my Friday night.
you can craft the wording to this on your front porch.
one-
Hey, Ben Carver, who did the signs in the Habitat Trail on the trees? Do you know?
You know, I don't know.
They look very Cayuga Nature Center, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they did. I'll ask. Maybe I'll ask the town clerk. She might know.
Yeah. Or yeah, I'm trying to think who would know. Don Ellis would probably know. He may have
Okay.
done. Yeah, I'm not sure of that.
Okay.
um, all right. So how do we resolve these things? Trying to get things a little cleared up. I'll probably go back and continue to make this more clear, but I at least took a comment that Jess, you have been signed up for / will do some rewording of this.
Yeah, and I got the very good point of remembering regional setting and not in that area to necessarily get too detailed. I think that's a
Yeah.
very smart suggestion.
Wonderful. I had put in, so now we move into demographics. I had a couple comments sent to me from various folks asking, could we include a breakdown? We've got population by age. Could we also include by race, ethnicity, as that kind of plays into a lot of pieces later on around those topics. So I asked for that to be added here unless there's serious concern around that.
Did we survey for that? Or who? Or
Yeah,
that's following?
this is pulled from census data. So there
Okay,
is that
great.
information. Yeah.
Oh, it says so right there. Thank you.
Yep. We have some small edits, which is just kind of rejiggering words, making things
And
clear.
Spelled. That was me. I'm like, we tend towards the elderly. Isn't that so nice of us? Just tending them. How kind.
Oh, okay. The next comment is quite a bit further down. So let's see if there's any edits first. So we are now, I'm now scrolling through kind of top of page 8. Again, another just kind of, I think, small reword. I'm not going to worry about those unless someone wants to call something out specifically. Then there's nothing for a little while until a comment just at the top of 14, I think, around Pease Street. The footbridge. Oh, yes, the footbridge. Yep, that should probably be in there. Yes.
And again, I think it may have fallen off of survey answers, but it's definitely following in with that researchy idea.
Oh, it's top of mind for enough people, that's for sure.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, I'll try and take a. I'll actually just try and take a pass
Wait,
at that.
my screen just got wacky. What number is that? 2 point what? Is it in
2,
there?
3, 4.
Okay, so we skipped one.
Oh, okay. I will go back. and
Unless I
check it.
did, oh, maybe I didn't include it because I did some work on my. Oh, nope, I lied. Not here.
All right. Carrying forward, we have one under East Main, which is section 2311 at the bottom of page 15. This sentence seems redundant with a third sentence in the same paragraph. So that's a comment from Rorden. It does seem to, or
Yeah, the third sentence says most structures are single unit residences, but there are some multi-unit buildings.
yes,
And then-
indeed.
We say
Yep.
most are single unit homes.
Yes. Take a quick pass at that. Carrying forward, we have a comment on Crescent Way, perhaps showing the site map instead of the image of the largest building, which is a unique fixture in the plan, better shows the neighborhood plan. That is a good point. I'm also not, I don't know,
Or I
sold
think
on the idea of anything there.
I
necessarily.
also I think I went on and it might have been not in this comment then on my iPad, maybe just a rendering of the site map that shows the trees and the shape of it. If we wanted
Right.
an image is, because certainly you can see there's a large building in the middle. I'm like, it's not
Right.
sugarcoating or changing anything. It's just, it actually,
Well, I mean, now that you bring it up though, I'm wondering, do we need anything at all? I mean, none of the other sections have it.
yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
I would strike to just, yeah, remove it.
Great. I like that. Plus there's a whole website on it. If someone reads this and gets
Right.
off to figure out what it is, they can go to the website.
Let's see.
I do think this is the spot though, maybe at the top of this section where I think someone else had mentioned adding maps, like inline maps throughout the text. And this to me
That might have been
definitely warrants that because it would really help. I really like the map with the sort of different neighborhoods broken out. It would be
However, I
really
think that was a planning board comment, was it maybe?
I think so.
Maybe.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it helps to put people in the place and time. If what we're doing is setting place, and then I think that gives a sense of place.
All right. I'll take a
in
note to,
favor.
yeah, to add the image and then still call out in the appendix because it likely will be a larger, nicer quality in the appendix, but like, right, just the overview kind of generally get your bearings. I think makes a ton of sense.
Oh, wait, Dartha, are you suggesting
Yeah.
that maybe we want all the maps are just in the appendix and they're called out here? Or they're actually visually represented here? 'Cause
No,
it
so
could be that.
yeah, so currently they're all in the appendix and they get said, go to the appendix if you want to see more. But I'm saying I think we should have both. We should have it say it's in the appendix, but also to say
Where does it? Oh, there, I see at the very top paragraph.
yeah, so like
Okay.
in right, the first opening paragraph of 2.3, you could
Thank-
say you could have just a smaller visual, an image of it in line. But you probably won't have the same. I'm just thinking literally just from kind of how the format of the document, it'll probably be harder to put like the full high res image in line versus as its own page in a PDF later on. So I think both would make sense.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Let's see, I made a note that, and I think I actually got this from comments sent to me that the school should say pre-K through 12, which I'll make actually just, I'll start moving some of these into actual just suggested edits as we go. Moving forward, we have something, let's see, we're now in section 242. And so Jessica, you had said maybe to tweak the language to say we'll have to grow sounds a bit mandated, which, yeah, it's not mandated, but it's more kind of like, well, we'll have to because things happen. But how to phrase that better?
That's on us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I liked your kind of suggestion, like we'll to meet housing goals, we'll need to grow or something like that.
Great.
I think it's worth wording it to reflect the fact that that's the county's housing strategy. So you could say something to the effect of, it could actually be as simple as saying, as a group, established nodes will have to grow by a total of 5,200 new housing units per year if they are to meet the suggestions of the county's housing strategy. Because it is, because that is what the county wants. You know, whether the individual municipalities choose to do that or not is not up to the county.
All right. Moving forward. Yeah, so right, the zoning ordinance, and you'll be surprised to know that this is already smaller than we started with. But is it normal to include this much detail in the existing zoning ordinance? I don't know. It seemed like it was a bit much to me too, but we cut it down a lot and then we kind of said good enough. But maybe we should take a second pass at it for sure.
And so to me, this is a good example, and I think maybe this comes back to the planning board comments again. This seems like a good example of something that might be good to have as a reference, and it might be appropriate in like an appendix or something like that, where it's not sort of in the line of the text, but it is available.
I like that.
I mean,
Yeah,
fundamentally,
Go ahead.
if a comp plan is a vision document reflecting the desires of the community, then this level of detail seems out of place. Certainly, we want to acknowledge that this is not a first comp plan in a community that's never had zoning before. So we want to acknowledge that there is a revised zoning document. You know, maybe even a very brief historical blurb about, you know, initial zoning in the 50s led to the first formal zoning document in 1971, which was heavily revised in 2012 after the adoption of the village's first comprehensive plan in 2008, kind of thing. And then all of the granular, well, what's in that document? Well, we should either
Go
go
read
look at
it.
the zoning document
Right.
itself, right? Or have an appendix which references this amount.
So I think if I can try and channel what I think what EDR was suggesting here is the idea of the comp plan has many different readers for many different purposes, one of whom is developers who might want to build something, and to be able to come in and say, here's the zoning ordinance, here's kind of the like high level pieces that exist, and here's links to kind of the articles that you might want to go into should you need to. I think that's the intent of it. Certainly doesn't hurt. I don't know. The fact that our zoning ordinance doesn't have a table of contents in and of itself is frustrating. Something we will be fixing, by the way. So there is some value in having this to point at people. I think it depends on how much we want to, right, kind of give a quick, easy thing for someone to skim if they're looking to dig in deeper here. Or, you know, I'm definitely open to the idea that that's just not the best use of this particular space. And if so, then yeah, what do we want to replace it with?
I'm actually, now the more that you've all made your comments, I think that it doesn't have any place in the appendix either. And that a high level summary has a place in the zoning ordinance itself if people want to get a feel for it. And I like the notion of reinforcing, especially because one of the consumers of this document should just be the average public. It should be approachable enough to them, right? To say, and they may not know, right? This is since I like the historical perspective as well. The comprehensive plan by design informs the zoning ordinance as it has since 1951 and did most recently in 2012. And I don't know if it's relevant to say this comprehensive plan will also inform an update to the zoning code or whatever. And then drop all these details.
Well, I think so. I think what's trying to be accomplished in 2.4 is this idea of here's all the regional and local land use plans and regulations. If you're going to try and do something in Trumansburg, you should be aware of these documents. So to that extent, maybe it should just be as short as kind of the housing strategy above it, 2-3 sentences at most, to just say like, maybe kind of what Roden was saying, like zoning exists. Go look at
Yeah,
it. And like,
including subdivision regulations. I'm not sure why that would be part of the comprehensive plan either.
I agree with what Jess just said. And also the Vicar thing, I think all of that could be wrapped up into about a paragraph of what Roden said, plus a sentence about subdivision and a sentence about Vicar, and then
I agree. And I'm so glad we got feedback on it. And I'm so glad that attention of the committee was paid to that because they had a dual purpose, right? Comp plan and zoning review.
so are people interested in having one bullet, one subsection here that says like local planning, like local land use or something like that, and then bulleting underneath the different things? Or would we like to keep the structure the same and say there's a 2.3, 243 for zoning, 2.4, 244 for subdivision, but each one of those would be a sentence or two?
Are we or are we not looking to incorporate subdivision regs into the new zoning draft?
It hasn't come up. I wouldn't say that there's a clear distinction idea either way.
Well, you would have to address them. Either to say we keep it as it is, or we want to change it. I mean, it would have to be addressed. It's there already.
So then I think that the 243 Trumansburg zoning ordinance should stay that way, but not have all the detail. Again, for someone, it's interesting the way you phrase that. So if EDR's position is that if someone wants to come and do something in the village, this is a way for them to find out easily. I find myself, and maybe this is just a gut reaction, I find myself very unsympathetic to that. It's sort of like if someone wants to come and build something that's great, they have homework to do. And so, sure, whether, in other words, this reads as very dense for the new resident who's curious about the new community. And so if we can make it so that it's relevant to both the new resident curious about the community and to the person looking to build something, and then how much more additional homework they do after that depends on what their intentions are.
I almost, now that you're talking, wonder, do we want section 2.4 at all? Like, what is the point of it?
What is the point of it?
so that,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Yeah,
No, yeah, go ahead.
I totally agree. I was having the same thought as this conversation. I was sort of scrolling up and down, like, how far does this go? I think it is worth acknowledging that it is actually, I think I don't think it should be in this document, but I think it is in and of itself sort of a worthwhile document to have somewhere. Maybe it gets copied and pasted in parts in the zoning document, or maybe it's something else. I mean, but it is nicely done. I think the context is important and it's a nice reference. But
Well, my intent, I mean, certainly, I can speak a little bit to the zoning ordinance because we've started, tiptoeing in there. One of the first things we did is say, put a table of contents. And so I think that in and of itself solves 80% of what's going on in here. So, and there is this little like weird self-referential thing here going on where it's like the zoning ordinance, like the comp plan is talking about what exists today under the comp plan, but we all know that the absolutely next thing that we're actually already working on is editing all of these things. So it kind of becomes almost like it's out of date within 6 to 12 months.
So I find myself not wanting to strike 2.4 completely. I think it provides context. So we just came from a whole section about tourist attractions, what's important to the area, what is too granular to be considered important, but certainly the national forest is important in the parks and so on. So we provide context in that section. I think it's worthwhile providing context to land use plans and regulations. You know, the village is not developing this comprehensive plan in isolation in a bubble, and everyone around us has zero zoning. You know, the context of the county having a comprehensive plan when it was created, I think there's way too much detail in that section. I mean, the third or fourth paragraph in, is it really relevant about Dryden, Groton, and Newfield? And what the county thinks those areas should be used for? Is that relevant to our comp plan? I would say no. But the fact that the county has a comp plan that looks to the outlying municipalities to do something, I think is important context, as well as the housing strategy, the fact that we do have zoning, the fact that we do have subdivision regs, although that feels a little bit granular in itself, unless people really know what subdivision regs are, and how many people do.
Just a
Vicar
bit.
seems odd there.
Well, maybe a different way of putting it together is to say, condense it down into a county, a 2-4-1, which would just talk about county. We could roll both the comp plan and the housing strategy together and kind of consolidate. And then one would be local land use, and just to call out, like, here's the things that you have. We've got zoning, we've got subdivision, we've got Beaker. You know, those are basically our land use regs.
I have a even more bold suggestion. Are you ready? What if
Go
it's
for it.
condensed to like 2 or 3 sentences and it's just in the purpose of the plan section 1.1? The purpose of this plan is to inform, as it did, 1951 moving forward, the zoning ordinance, Vicar. I mean, you don't even have to say that. The zoning ordinance that it mimics, that you could somehow sort of say, like Tompkins County's plan, like, and then people can refer to Tompkins County. Is there a way to ally this with Tompkins County and the notion of comprehensive plans, which then inform your zoning ordinance without having to call anything out? Because they should and will have to go look at the zoning ordinance.
I don't know. I'm partial to the keeping 2-4, but splitting it between county and local.
And just making a couple sentences in each thing.
I think it provides some important context to go from the areas within the village to regional and local land use. And then what's the next big section? Yeah, is natural resource and environmentally sensitive. I think it does provide a little bit of context to have kind of the county view coming down to the village view. And again, for someone who visits us from Mars, to know that the village isn't considering zoning for the very first time in its collective history, I think that does do something. But boy, no need for all of the Article 3, Section 308. You know, I mean, that's
Okay. Ben, are you going to tackle this?
Yeah, I can
Alright,
take this
alright,
on. I
alright,
don't
okay.
mind that.
But I think that we all said there's really great stuff in here, and I think it will have a really nice place in the zoning ordinance as a high level summary.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So the comment I just took was to say heavily edit this. I'll do that. Simplify it into 2.4.1 as a county section, 2.4.2 as a local section, and a paragraph or so of each, and call it a day.
Okay.
All right. Then I will skip over all the other edits inside of that because we'll just probably collapse them down. We've got a couple small edits. Now we're into 3.0, some small edits in here, which we'll gloss over, but starting in 3.1.2, we've got some comments. Also, actually, before we go on, I should say, hey, this is a new section. It's an easy place to pause. I don't know what kind of time commitment we want to put into this. We've got through 1 and 2. We've got 3 and 4 to go. We've got tonight. We've got also another night. Just throwing the question out.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
appreciate that question.
We've done 1 and 2, and I didn't realize it's 3. 3 is long.
3 is
Three's
long.
long.
Yeah.
4 is long, but we're certainly in no rush. So that's fine. I'm okay if everyone else, in the interest of daylight savings time, wants to take a pause there, and then we can When is our next meeting?
Well, we'll see some of us on Thursday, and then we've got next Monday.
But
The
Thursday's just
29th.
the PD review,
Yeah,
right?
we wouldn't do this on Thursday. Yeah.
Just checking.
Thursday is just,
Yeah.
Thursday is specifically for any public comment for anyone who wants to show up and provide additional comment.
Okay.
I will say that we've only received 2 emails in total with respect to the police reform draft. One of those emails is a compilation of comments from, I believe it's 9 individuals who had participated in the meetings and then had an ongoing conversation with Keith since then. So we'll see what kind of comment we get Thursday. And then the 29th is the evening that we need to adopt the final draft, whatever revisions come out of both the email comments and Thursday night's comments. We will need to revise that into something to adopt, to submit to the state. But that, I wouldn't anticipate taking a very long time. So we could plan on section 3, and we'll do these in bite-sized chunks. We'll do section 3 of the comp plan that night.
Okay.
And then come back to section 4 another night.
I like it.
Darther, when we're thinking about section 3, most of this is based on feedback from citizenry, or is it a mix?
No, I mean, basically 2 and 3 are pretty much just like, here's what exists.
Okay.
3 is, again, I mean, so, as far as kind of who did what, EDR did the bulk of 2 and 3, as in they're
Okay.
kind of collecting local information. So as we go through 3, I mean, I can just breeze through it, but like the unique natural areas is something the county designates. And so they pulled that in.
Okay.
Wetlands, all these other pieces are really from EDR. I would say the exception to that is there's at the end of each one, there's a path forward section.
Yep.
And that was more from the committee and from feedback as to like, what do we want to do in this area? We've got natural resources. What do we want to do with them going forward? And that's where we bring in kind of the community sense and the committee's sense and put that together. But yeah, when you talk about what's on the National Register of Historic Places, EDR pulled that together, put that in, that kind of a thing. Oh my, someone's grown up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pandemic will do that to you.
Also, just to reiterate, what a great presentation you guys are sending Albany. Super sharp. Really like it. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Keith, that was for you. Keith Hannon, that was my try to see if we could hear your voice.
No, I appreciate that. We got some work to do on it, but
It's sharp. Good.
we'll get there.
Any other items for regular session?
Oh, there's an executive session.
It'll be quick, Jess.
You're even happier that I made
I need a
this
bio
suggestion.
break.
It'll be quick. All right, then I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss a
So moved.
legal matter.
So moved. Or sorry, Jess moved. I'll second.
I'll be the
All in
third.
favor?
Aye.
Okay, give me a moment to pause everything.